Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping right in, translating some really dense industry sources into, well, a clear, actionable roadmap.
That's the plan.
Our focus, it's pharmaceutical digital transformation. We know it's necessary, but honestly, it can be a fatal journey for companies if they get it wrong.
Absolutely.
So we're here to extract those critical success factors, pinpoint the core challenges, and importantly, look at the measurable return on investment, the ROI, that really separates the leaders from, well, everyone else.
And you're right to flag this as high stakes. I mean, this isn't just about getting more efficient. In pharma, you're dealing with patient safety, heavy regulation. It's one of the most complex sectors, period. The sources we dug into, they really emphasize this. The potential upside is huge, massive even, but the risk, just as big.
Okay, so let's start there. What's the big risk number?
Well, we have to start with a pretty harsh reality check. The statistic that jumps out is a shocking 70%. 70% of digital transformation initiatives fail across the industry.
70%. Wow. Okay, that's sobering. What's driving that? Because, you hear a number like that and your first thought is, oh, the tech must have failed.
Yeah, that's the common assumption, but it's rarely just the technology itself. The core issue, almost always, according to our sources, comes down to, well, cultural resistance.
Ah, the people side.
Exactly. That, combined with a fundamental lack of a clear, cohesive strategy. Companies jump on tech solutions without prepping their people or really overhauling their old processes.
Okay, so it's a systemic thing.
It is. But here's the flip side, the good news. Those organizations that do manage to navigate these pitfalls, the ones with a clear map, so to speak, they don't just scrape by. They see immediate and often exponential return.
Right, and that's the payoff we're trying to understand. We're talking reported ROIs that, jump up to 150, maybe 200%. Now, pretty fast, too, like within 18 months.
That's what the data shows. And alongside that, they see a staggering 60% reduction in those transformation failure rates. Huge difference.
Okay, so we absolutely need to understand the framework, the foundation that gets companies that kind of success. Where do they start?
They start with something systematic, integrated. Before a successful organization even thinks about implementing a new system, they establish what the sources call the integrated three pillars framework.
The three pillars. Okay, let's unpack that. The sources seem really clear that you've got to balance these three things, right?
Yeah.
People, process, and technology. They're interdependent.
Exactly, interdependent. It's not enough to get one or even two right. The real strength, the magic, is in the synergy between them.
Got it. So pillar one.
Pillar one, people. Always start with people. If you don't invest here seriously, the other two pillars they crumble.
Okay.
This means you need unwavering leadership commitment. Like right from the top, the C-suite has to visibly champion the change. And crucially, it demands serious workforce upskilling.
Upskilling like?
Yeah.
What specifically?
We're talking about real training in cutting-edge stuff, data analytics, AI readiness, cloud engineering skills. The research is pretty compelling here. Organizations that prioritize this people development, they consistently report 25 to 30% higher transformation success rates.
25 to 30% higher.
Yeah.
Just from focusing on the people first.
Yep. Compared to their competitors who don't.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
You can't just hand someone keys to a spaceship without training, right?
Precisely.
So if you've got great people, they need effective processes.
Yeah.
That's pillar two. This feels like the less flashy part, maybe.
It often is, yeah. Less glamorous, but absolutely essential. You've got to tackle those, frankly, crippling inefficiencies baked into legacy pharma operations.
So what does that look like? Redesigning workflows.
Exactly. Redesigning workflows, implementing pretty strict governance frameworks. And this is key, embedding continuous improvement cycles right into how things operate daily, not just a one-off fix.
And the payoff for that grunt work.
Oh, it's dramatic. Effective process redesign, the sources show, can slash overall operational inefficiencies by up to 40%. 40%. That makes everything faster. Clinical trials, manufacturing decisions, you name it.
Okay, 40% is huge. Which brings us logically to pillar three, technology.
Finally, yes, tech. But again, it's not just about buying the latest shiny software. It's about building a truly robust, secure, and importantly, scalable infrastructure.
Scalable meaning cloud.
Often, yes. Moving critical operations, analytics to cloud platforms, integrating advanced tools like AI, IoT for real-time monitoring, across the whole value chain, R&D, manufacturing, commercial.
And the result of getting that tech foundation right.
Measurable impact. A solid tech foundation leads directly to around a 35% improvement in data accessibility and operational speed. Think about it.
Right.
You just cannot be an agile, data-driven company if your crucial data is stuck in separate, old, inaccessible silos.
Right. That integration sounds incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
But let's go back to that scary statistic. If implementation is where 70% of these projects die,
Mm-hmm.
what did the sources say are the biggest specific hurdles companies face trying to actually connect these three pillars?
That's the pivot point, isn't it? Addressing those foundational challenges head on. That's the difference between being a high ROI success story and just another statistic in that 70% failure group.
Okay.
Our sources basically identify 7 key foundational challenges. These need to be systematically tackled, usually over about a 6-month period of really intensive organizational work.
6 months intensive work. And what kind of resources are we talking about for that initial push? We've heard the potential ROI, which is great, but what's the upfront investment just to lay the groundwork?
Yeah, good question. For tackling just those 7 specific foundational hurdles, the total budget commitment usually falls somewhere just under the $2 million mark. So maybe $1.5 million up to about $1.9 million.
Okay, 1.5 to 1.9 million. Not insignificant.
Not at all. And what's really telling is how that budget gets allocated. When you break it down, you see just how people-centric the whole problem really is.
Interesting. Okay, let's dive into those 7 challenges then. Starting with the cultural ones, they sound like the toughest to solve just by throwing money at them. First up, executive leadership commitment. How do you define success there? It can't just be signing off on a budget.
Exactly. It's highly people-intensive. Success isn't just getting approval. It's about developing and showing a visible, unified digital mindset right at the very top. The leadership needs to live it.
Right.
And that has to be coupled with really clear accountability structures. Who owns this transformation? When you get that level of genuine top-down commitment, the sources show a massive 60% increase in the success rates of these initiatives.
60% increase. And faster decisions, too.
Yeah, decision-making speeds up by about half. It just flows better when everyone's aligned from the top.
Which leads right into that second big hurdle. Managing organizational change resistance. This sounds like where most companies stumble, right? Directly hitting that 70% failure rate cause. Why is resistance apparently so high in pharma compared to other industries?
It's the culture, fundamentally. It's inherently conservative, risk-averse, and honestly, for good reason, right?
Sure, patient safety.
Patient safety, regulatory compliance. Every single change, no matter how small it seems, has to be weighed against those huge factors. So tackling resistance, it requires really proactive, intense change management efforts, dedicated communication programs, a lot of reassurance.
And that's where a big chunk of that initial budget goes, isn't it? I think I saw this is the most expensive people-intensive challenge.
It is, yeah, by far. The budget just for that proactive change management piece, so personnel dedicated to it, training programs, communication materials, that alone ranges between $280,000, $340,000.
Wow.
And personnel costs make up about 65% of that specific challenge's budget. But here's the thing, successfully navigating this, it leads to a measurable 55% reduction in change resistance. It's probably the single largest non-technology investment, and there's a very good reason for it.
Okay, dedicating potentially over $250,000 just to changing minds. That really underscores how deep that cultural inertia runs in pharma. All right, let's shift gears slightly to the strategic and operational hurdles. How do the successful companies avoid just doing random acts of digital, those ad hoc initiatives?
They get laser focused on defining the digital transformation strategy. The goal isn't a shopping list of cool software. It's a comprehensive blueprint that is absolutely fundamentally aligned with the core business objectives.
Not just tech for tech's sake.
Never. And when companies achieve that strategic clarity, they see about a 40% improvement in how well their digital initiatives align with what the business actually needs. And critically, they avoid wasting. Well, the sources estimate over $2 million in redundant IT investments.
$2 million saved just by having a clear plan. That makes sense. Stops different departments solving the same problem with different tools.
Exactly. You stop buying 3 different apps to do basically the same thing.
And that strategic clarity must help with the next challenge, creating cross-functional alignment. Breaking down those infamous silos, R&D, clinical, commercial. We all know poor collaboration kills projects. But what's the quantifiable benefit of getting it right?
Well, the data suggests that successful cross-functional alignment, meaning you have genuinely integrated teams working towards shared goals, using common platforms that alone can cut overall project delivery time by 35%.
35% faster delivery just by getting teams to talk to each other better.
Essentially, yes. It's efficiency gained simply by removing that internal friction.
Okay, now let's talk about a really unique pharma challenge, establishing a digital governance framework. In maybe, I don't know, retail, this might be less critical, but in pharma, you're walking this tightrope, right? Speed of digital innovation versus absolute non-negotiable regulatory compliance and quality.
It is absolutely a tightrope walk. And that formal governance, that's your safety net. Without it, either innovation grinds to a halt because people are afraid to break rules, or worse, compliance fails.
And the benefit of getting that governance right.
It's significant. By establishing a rigorous, clear framework, organizations report about a 50% reduction in compliance issues. And think about what that saves: time, rework costs, huge regulatory penalties, peace of mind.
50% reduction in compliance issues is massive. Okay, finally, in this foundational set, we hit the measurement hurdles. You can't manage what you don't measure right.
Correct.
First step is understanding digital maturity assessment. How do the successful companies approach this early on, say in month 1 or 2?
They need a standardized way to measure where they are. Often they adopt existing models, frameworks like Pharma 4.0, which is specifically tailored for the pharmaceutical context manufacturing R&D.
And that assessment itself costs money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. Doing it properly costs between $180,000 and $220,000. And again, look where the money goes. About 65% is allocated to highly specialized personnel to conduct the assessment.
Yeah.
But it gives you that crucial baseline data. You need it to build the strategy intelligently.
Got it. So you have the baseline. Then you need to actually nail measuring digital transformation ROI. And this sounds like where pharma is really different from other industries. You can't just look at the P&L.
Exactly. You have to move beyond just traditional financial metrics. You need to measure value derived from, say, improved patient outcomes, better regulatory compliance indicators, even the monetary value of new data assets you create.
So tracking those kinds of metrics, what does that lead to?
When you have standardized tracking for these broader ROI indicators, it leads to about a 25% improvement in investment decisions. Basically, you make smarter choices about where to put your money. And it helps optimize resource allocation by the sources estimate over $1.5 million.
Okay, so successfully navigating those 7 foundational challenges: leadership, resistance, strategy, alignment, governance, assessment, and ROI measurement, that gives the organization the solid base it needs.
Right, the structural integrity.
To then tackle the really high-level strategic business pivots, moving beyond the old ways of doing things.
Exactly. That's where it gets really exciting, actually, reinventing the business model itself. Organizations must pivot towards new business models. For decades, pharma was basically product-centric, right? Sell the pill.
Yep, sell pills in boxes.
Now we're seeing this massive shift towards service-oriented models.
Can you give us an example? What does a service-oriented model look like in pharma?
Sure. A big one is digital therapeutics. This is basically software prescribed as a treatment, sometimes alongside a drug, sometimes even instead of one.
Software is medicine.
Okay. Yeah. Or things like data as a service, where companies leverage all the patient data, the R&D data they accumulate, and actually generate revenue from insights derived from it. But pivoting like this, it demands totally new expertise in things like digital health economics, deep patient journey mapping.
Right, new skills again. And with transformation budgets for these kinds of strategic initiatives potentially getting quite large, what did the sources say? Maybe $4.5 million up to over $10 million.
That's the range, yeah, 4.5 to 10.1 million for these bigger strategic plays.
So companies have to be incredibly disciplined about investment prioritization. How do they choose where to put that kind of capital first?
Well, they usually categorize investments, thinking about timeline versus strategic value. The sources really highlight this need to balance quick wins with things that have more long-term, maybe transformative value.
Okay, give me an example of a quick win. High ROI, short timeline.
A classic example is regulatory reporting automation. It might not sound sexy, but it offers a really high ROI relatively quickly. It frees up people, reduces errors. It's a great way to demonstrate immediate value from the transformation program.
Okay, makes sense. And on the other end of that spectrum, the longer term, maybe higher value bet?
That would be something like investing in digital biomarkers. This definitely takes longer to implement, longer to see the full value.
Digital biomarkers, meaning?
Essentially, using data collected from patients' remotely think wearables, smartphones, special sensors to track how a disease is progressing or how well a drug is working, all in real time. It fundamentally changes how clinical trials are run, how treatments get monitored post-launch. Huge strategic value down the line.
Wow. Okay.
And what's really eye-opening from the sources is that some of these really targeted, high-impact programs, especially around fostering innovation itself once they mature, they can deliver financial returns exceeding 700%.
700% ROI.
Yeah.
Okay, that's game-changing territory. But to get that kind of return, you obviously need the right team in place. When you look at the successful transformation teams described, what's the structure? Where are the key skills concentrated?
Yeah, the team structure really reinforces that need for balancing the tech and the strategy, the two most critical functions. Technology and IT specialists make up the single largest group, about 28% of the team on average.
Okay, nearly a third are tech folks.
Yep, but followed very closely by business strategy specialists. They account for about 22% of the team.
Tech and strategy neck and neck almost.
Pretty much, it tells you you absolutely must have the technical capability to build and run the systems, but you equally need that strategic depth to make sure those systems are solving the right business problems in the first place.
So let's try and pull this all together. What does this really mean for you, the listener? We've basically laid out a blueprint, haven't we? Success in pharmaceutical digital transformation. It's not optional anymore, but it's also not luck. It's a deeply systematic journey.
That's right. It has to be built rigorously on those three pillars: people, process, technology. It absolutely demands strict governance, especially in pharma, to manage compliance. It needs that proactive change management we talked about to overcome the inevitable cultural resistance.
And strategic investment,
Yeah.
based not just on financials, but on those broader measures, like patient outcomes.
Exactly. And the payoff is there. The sources confirm that companies who really execute a comprehensive strategy, hitting all 7 of those foundational challenges, methodically, they report an average ROI of 385%.
385% average ROI. Just to put that number in perspective for everyone,
Well,
we're not talking about small incremental efficiency gains here, are we?
Not at all. We're talking about fundamentally restructuring the business model, positioning for exponential growth, and really cementing industry leadership. It's transformative.
And that inherent complexity, balancing the sheer speed of digital innovation with that absolute paramount need for patient safety and regulatory compliance. That's what makes pharma digital transformation so unique, so challenging. But the blueprint, as you said, it's undeniably clear now.
It is.
The total average implementation timeline for getting through those big strategic challenges,
Yeah.
just 12.4 months, just
Right.
over a year.
That's the average time frame the successful companies achieve.
So the question, I think, that you need to be mulling over right now is,
Yeah.
what specific system, what entrenched process in your current operation are you willing to truly invest in starting now to achieve that kind of long-term strategic advantage, to get that kind of industry-leading return in potentially just over a year?
That really is the core question. It requires commitment. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this deep dive into the blueprint for success in pharmaceutical digital transformation.